Senator Ron Wyden on the line with us, the Democratic senator from Oregon, and my senator, one of my two senators. Senator Wyden, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
It's great to have you back on with us. You are quoted by Sam Stein over at Huffington Post talking about a provision of, actually, your original Healthy Americans Act, which we discussed half a year ago, I think, on this program, that made its way into the Senate health care legislation. Can you tell us about this?
I can, and it's really striking because I think the debate has really come to a key and fresh time. The attorneys general, some of the conservative attorneys general around the country are filing, suit to block this bill on the grounds that the individual mandate, the purchase requirement, is unconstitutional. Well, two things. First, we got a specific provision in the bill, Section 1332, that in effect says states are empowered to go do their own thing. They can set up their own approach, whether it's going with a public option approach or a variety of different, approaches, and get a waiver, to do it. I call it the innovate rather than litigate, approach.
Sure.
In fact, I just visited with Russ Feingold a few minutes ago, and Russ said, hey, it looks to me like some of the strategy for some of these attorney generals is sue, baby, sue.
Yeah.
Well, the fact is a lot of progressives have actually come up with an alternative. We'd like to make it kick in as soon as possible. We're already having discussions about how to do it. But for all the folks on the far right who keep talking about how this nationalizes health care, it Europeanizes, health care, we think there's a great opportunity for progressives to take that Section 1332. It has become law. We're very sympathetic with the idea of moving it up in terms of the implementation to as quickly as we possibly can. And boy, that's what I'd rather see some of these state officials do rather than trying to sue and hold up people getting coverage.
Yeah. Senator Wyden, we're talking with Senator Ron Wyden from Oregon. Senator, as you know, your colleague Bernie Sanders put forward a proposal that individual states be allowed, this was a separate piece of legislation sometime back, be allowed to create and encouraged and supported by federal monies in creating single-payer systems within their states. Canada has nationwide single-payer, but it started in Saskatchewan, and it's still administered by the individual provinces. Dennis Kucinich tried to get, something that would blow up the ERISA problem in the House. Would this make it possible for states? I mean, California twice has passed single-payer legislation through their legislature, and it's been shot down vetoed both times by the Republican governor. Would this allow a state to do that as well?
I believe this provision, which has actually becomes law, gives states and progressives almost unfettered opportunity to go out and tailor an approach, for example, that underlies the question you're talking about, which is to finally hold the insurance companies, accountable. I don't see anything in that provision, for example, and it has become law, Tom. This is actually the law.
This is what was signed
yesterday. This is what was signed today that wouldn't let the states go out and start working to put together a plan that can allow for public option. And that's what we sought to do. Now, are folks at the conservative side of the political spectrum going to be able to look at their kinds of approaches? Well, they've got to meet the general coverage requirements of the bill. They can't just say, oh, just give us a waiver and then we're not going to have any coverage. We'll just give insurance companies a free ride in terms of policy, that sort of thing. But if you meet the coverage, if you meet the coverage requirements of this bill, you can do it. And what this does is this shows that progressives can lead at a critical time when the country is hungry for fresh, creative approaches that will do more to contain costs quickly.
Let each state become a cauldron of innovation. Absolutely brilliant. Senator Wyden, just real quickly, I know your time is limited. You've been having a vote-a-thon this morning. You guys were in session until 2:55 this morning. Then you came back at 10 a.m. You probably had very little sleep. The Republicans finally succeeded in finding some parliamentary language in the fix reconciliation bill that has to do with student loans that's going to send it back to the House. My understanding is that even at that, the student loan changes are going to remain intact, and in all probability, the House will pass this. Can you give us a status update beyond that?
I think you've summed it up. Look, we've always said that the march for social, justice is a tough one. It's not going to be won with a few steps. It's a continual kind of battle. But I look at this health issue and think back to when we proposed that Healthy Americans Act on a cold day in December. Much of what we put in that bill is now law. And how can you say to the country that eliminating discrimination against folks with pre-existing conditions, reining in insurance company abuses, and jump-starting the development of a marketplace that will look like what members of Congress have, how can you say that's not real progress? On the march to social justice, to me, that's making real strides.
Yeah, it is. Although you say social justice, and there are some, Glenn Beck has come out and said if a preacher says social justice from the pulpit, go to a different church. So,
well, fortunately, I'm talking to somebody who understands what this is what this is all about, and whether it's the provision that we're talking about on this show that is law that gives progressives the chance to go out and organize. Bernie Sanders and I were talking about it now. Why not get progressives working to make this kick in even earlier, make it give even more flexibility to look at more options, but boy, we've got a lot to work with that sections become law.
Yeah, you're right, and thank you so much for getting that into the Senate bill, and good on you for doing it. Senator Ron Wyden, thanks for dropping by today.
Great, let's do it again.
Indeed, and thanks for so ably representing the state that I live in.